You're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast. Sit back and enjoy the shenanigans of Mike and Sue as they discuss all aspects of metal detecting and everything else treasure related. For those of you who play the How Many Times Will Mike Say Relic Machine game, grab a beverage of your choosing and have responsible fun. We hope you enjoy the show.
Hey everybody, you're listening to the All Metal Mode podcast, and thanks for joining us. So you heard the new intro, and Bill has already commented on it, and I finally got around to it. I know it's been too long, but me and Steph, actually it took us all day. It was a real pain, and if you come in later in the show, or make sure you listen to the end as well. You want to listen to it because it's kind of a funny story, taking so long. When Steph did the intro, she was all just, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed yesterday morning, and it just come off really good, and heck, she was almost giggling. By the end, when we did the outro, my goodness, she was... it sounds a little more mechanical, and you could just tell, not the same mood, but she was a trooper. She helped me out a lot doing that. So I'd say take a listen when you get a chance. Tonight I'll be flying solo. Sue got a hold of me earlier. She can't make it tonight. She had some stuff come up, and next week I know she has plans as well, so she's not going to be here next week. I know you guys don't want to just listen to me, but it'll be all right. We'll get through it together. Check out the Archaeology Metal Detecting magazine, archmd.com. I'm excited. I just talked to Luke the other day. They're starting, I believe it's a quarterly hard copy magazine. Now that's over in the UK, but any of our UK listeners, that's coming soon, and a great online magazine. And like I've said before, check out their Facebook page. I get their articles right in my direct, in my feed, so I can keep up with what's going on over there. So yeah, good deal. Tonight's guest, we've got Steve Hirschbeck. Did I say that right, Steve?
Hirschbach. Close enough.
Yeah, I mess up everybody's name. I'm sorry, Steve. But yeah, we got Steve Hirschbach back. DetectorProspector.com. Check it out. Especially, Steve was saying just now before the show, it is geared towards the prospector. But, I've never done any prospecting, any gold hunting, although I'd love to someday. It's my favorite forum for metal detecting. It's the only one I go to right now. I've tried a bunch of them, and they don't feel like home. I found Steve's forum completely by accident, and it's been home ever since. And that's detectorprospector.com. Check it out. It's good for metal detecting. It's great. There's a lot of good posts. A lot of good information from a lot of good people, but you're not going to find more or better information on prospecting. Is that safe to say, Steve?
Yeah, definitely, Mike, and appreciate the plug there. Yeah, the website started out being very much about gold prospecting and looking for gold with metal detectors, but as everybody's probably aware, it seems like metal detectors are getting more and more capable of doing just about everything well. And so there's been more and more overlap in the last years, especially between, the prospecting machines and the jewelry hunting machines and coin hunting machines are getting to be where they're darn near the same machines anymore. So the website reflects that. The forums I've got have expanded.
Hey,
coin and relic jewelry. So it's been expanding by.
Steve, hold on real quick. Can you hear me?
Yeah, sure.
We're having some audio
Can you hear me?
issues. Yeah, I'm wondering if I've got audio issues on my end, or hey, anybody in chat that's listening, can you tell me if it's audio issues on my end or if it's Steve? I'm sorry, Steve. I don't know, pre-show you sounded fine. I said there was, we talked about you sounded a little bit low, but okay, yeah, it sounds like you're underwater. That's what Bill said.
Huh.
We're having some kind of, it's cutting kind of, you're not cutting completely out. It just gets real muffled and having trouble hearing it. Okay, I don't know.
Yeah, my end, I don't know there's nothing really I can do except call back. I just don't know what else to do on my end.
Steve, let's try that real quick because we didn't have any issues last time, correct? No.
Yeah, everything was just fine.
Okay, yeah, let's, call me right back. Let's try that.
Okay, I'm going to hang up. I'll call immediately back.
Okay. All right, hang on, guys. Sorry about that. We had no issues like this during pre-show, so I'm not sure what's going on, but Steve will give us a call right back, and there he is. Hey, Steve's back with us.
Is that any better, I hope?
So far, none of that was jumbled up or sounded bad, so good deal. Yeah, I'm with you. What I did catch was now they're kind of all in one. There's some really good detectors that are kind of more well-rounded, not I get what you're saying. Yeah, completely get what you're saying.
Well, yeah, and we can talk more about the specific detectors soon, but yeah, it really is a matter of, it used to be you really needed a machine specifically for prospecting, and most of the general purpose machines were not that good at it, but they've gotten remarkably good in the last few years to where, you can own one metal detector and actually go out and nugget hunt and do pretty well at it.
Right. Yeah, that's pretty cool, because you're right. Not that long ago that wasn't really true. What do you think? This isn't really where I wanted to start, but you kind of brought up something that comes to mind. I got a question. What would you consider the first, or one of the first, or maybe the one that sticks out in your mind that kind of crossed that line?
Well, it's interesting because I got my start looking for gold back in the early 70s. And so it's funny because when I first started nugget hunting with metal detectors, what I discovered was metal detectors were worthless for looking for gold. I mean, back in the early 70s, they just simply didn't have the horsepower. So you were better off with a $5 gold pan than a metal detector.
Yeah.
So the first step was even getting machines that were basically even capable. And that didn't come along until the 80s when we got good ground balancing metal detectors. And, the first machine that really, in my opinion, kind of was a gold machine that came out was the original Fisher Gold Bug. I mean, it was a true nugget hunting machine. But then it was some time after that before we started getting decent machines that could really do a good job of doing everything. I had a Compass Gold Scanner Pro was one of my earlier machines that was kind of a do-everything machine that was very good at looking for gold nuggets also. But, if there's a standout machine, one that really jumps out at me as being the first kind of do-everything really, really well machine, it was the White's MXT. That thing was just pretty amazing. When it first came out, White's really didn't really market it all that much as a prospecting machine, but we were using it into Alaska to look for gold and started doing extremely well with it, up there to the point where I think I had a lot to do with popularizing it as a nugget machine. But lots of gold, many, many pounds of gold found in Alaska with the White's MXTs, and so it was kind of one of the ones that really was a true do-everything machine there.
Huh. I didn't know that. I've never heard that. I've heard of them as great relic machines. I know some people, a lot of people, say that's one of, I've heard people say that's one of White's best detectors. And I've seen a lot of people that love what a good relic machine it is. I keep saying relic machine because there's a drinking game going on every show because I say relic machine a lot, Steve. But yeah, I've never heard of it for prospecting. That's really neat. I didn't know that.
Well, it's funny, but this is absolutely true, is that all the things that make for a really good relic machine actually tend to make for a really good nugget machine. I mean, what you want is some ability to really pull non-ferrous targets out of a mess of ferrous junk, and some good ground handling capability. In particular, relic hunters very often want sensitivity to low conductors, bullets, buttons, things like that. And so it's not a coincidence that some of the best relic machines also make very good nugget hunting machines. And the MXT really was the one that kind of really lit that whole thing on fire, because it is really good at relics, really good at coins, really good at jewelry. It really is, in my opinion, one of the first real multi-purpose machines when it hit the market that just did very well at everything. And that's why it was so popular. I mean, people were buying it for everything in the world. It could handle just about everything well. To this day, it's still a good performer.
I never knew that, Steve. I'm surprised. I'm not really in that community much, because I've never been anywhere where prospecting and or nugget hunting is relevant. So, but yeah, I'm surprised.
Well, and
to hear that.
it's also regional, because like whites, for instance, we were based in Alaska. I was born and raised up there, and when I got into business in '76, actually selling metal detectors, and you could say Alaska basically is whites electronics country because of the company being located in Oregon. They had a real early start in Alaska, and so just like you'll get in parts of the country and Garrett is extremely popular, or you go to another part of the country and maybe Fisher's the machine. So Alaska was kind of whites, and for a long time you could walk into my shop and it really just boiled down to, hey, do you want to look for just gold nuggets? Well, then you want to buy a white's GMT. Or do you want to look for everything in the world? You want to look for coins, relics, jewelry, whatever? MXT. And for a long time, our business just sold pretty much GMTs, and MXTs was probably half the sales up there, because of the ability to find gold was so important to the people.
Wow. Yeah. Now, can you tell me, what do you think some of the good ones are? Is there anything more current now? I mean, it's
absolutely.
Is still very relevant, but are there some other good crossovers that you'd recommend? That
Well, everybody got, the fact is the manufacturers watch each other, and the MXT really was one of the early just kind of do-it-all, real well machines, very, very popular. And it started a bit of a trend, because everybody did that same mid-frequency thing. The MXT runs at 14 kilohertz, and that's just a great do-it-all kind of frequency. So, you ended up with later on with Garrett with the AT Pro, and then at 15 kilohertz, so practically the same frequency again as a do-it-all machine. And then they had the AT Gold at 18 kilohertz. So, that's them targeting that same do-it-all market. Fisher ended up coming out with the F75, and the same guy that designed the White's MXT, Dave Johnson, later went to work for Fisher, and then the first machine he really produced with them was the F75. And I found a lot of gold nuggets with the F75. It's a great relic machine, but it's also a darn capable do-it-all machine. So actually, if you look at every manufacturer, they've got one of those machines running in the mid-frequencies that'll pretty much do everything. Yeah. Even the Deus, you don't hear much about it, but the new high-frequency coils, it's a perfectly capable nugget hunting machine. And I found gold with the Deus, and that new little elliptical high-frequency is a very capable nugget hunting coil. So, the Tesoro Lobo to this day is still a pretty popular machine. It's another Dave Johnson design, and running at 17 kilohertz. So, those are all those crossover machines. But, for people that are, the Minelab Equinox is another brand new machine that's going to have that capability, especially when the small coil comes out. So there really is this do it all, one machine kind of thing out there. And then for the hardcore guys, there's obviously the big gun mine labs, the pulse induction machines, and the GPZ 7000 and such. They're strictly for prospecting.
Now,
and,
you
kind of
mentioned-
machines I use a lot.
You mentioned the Equinox. Does the Gold Cruiser pique your interest at all?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. In fact, it's one of the few. I hate to say this, but the Equinox kind of has ruined me a little bit in that I am these days, when I look at new metal detectors, I want to see a lot of capability in one machine, multiple frequency choices, stuff like that. So I don't pay quite as much attention anymore to any of the just single frequency offerings coming out. But the Gold Cruiser, because gold nugget hunting is so near and dear to my heart, I definitely have been watching it closely, and I plan on having my hands on one as soon as possible when they're out. I expect we'll be seeing them in May here sometime, seems to be the scuttlebutt. So
yeah,
we'll see how that develops. But it's another one of these. It's more of a specialty machine. It'll probably be decent for jewelry hunting and stuff, but I don't think you'll see it. Their multi-cruiser is really aimed more at the people that want to do everything, whereas the Gold Cruiser is quite a bit more specific.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I agree. But I know that's not really geared towards. Yeah, exactly. It's more specialty. But I don't know. I'm curious to see what some of the people that are heavy into looking for gold nuggets, what they'll think of that machine.
Oh yeah, well, I can all really, honestly, when it comes to single frequency machines, I can almost tell you what they're going to do before they even hit the market, because single frequency is old tech. It's not new. I mean, it's been out forever. And so the Gold Cruiser at 61 kilohertz, I can tell you right now that it's going to be right up there with like the Fisher Gold Bug 2 and the White's GMT at, very high frequency, going to be very sensitive to small gold. It'll be very good at handling mineralized ground. Locked in at a single frequency, though, at 61 kilohertz, that means it's going to be almost too sensitive for a lot of stuff. It's going to really be hot on just little tiny bits of foil, bird shot, you name it. It's going to scream on that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I would think that. Yeah, I don't see any use for that except strictly gold hunting. Now,
though, there's a big question in my mind, though, that's developed too. That was kind of the gospel. If it's too high a frequency, it's going to be too sensitive. You're not going to want to use it for other stuff. But look what Deus did. They came out with that high frequency coil set, and those things are running. That round 9-inch coil in particular is extremely popular and doing very, very well, and it's doing it at very high frequencies, and it really makes me want to run out with some of these higher frequency machines, like the 56 kilohertz Macro Gold Racer, for instance, or even this 61 kilohertz machine. And maybe they've got some applications for relic hunting that we just haven't looked at hard enough.
Yeah, you're right. I've thought about that. I don't know. I'm a relic hunter, and you get up real high frequency, and it kind of to me, there's a cutoff.
Well, it gets too sparky. It gets too sparky. I mean, man, like I say, do you want to be chasing birdshot all day long? And those super high frequencies do tend to make the iron start, lighten up on some of the false signaling and stuff. So it's problematic. But if you're looking to pull some small, low conductors out of a pile of junk, those high frequencies definitely pull some magic.
Now, that was kind of the next question I was going to lead into. What's kind of your frequency range that you like to work with on a regular, VLF or multi-frequency detector? What are you looking for? What kind of frequency?
For nugget hunting?
What kind of for nugget hunting? Yeah.
Well, if you don't mind, I'll back up just a little bit here. I would assume that most of the people listening to this show haven't done a lot of nugget hunting, if any, and probably in parts of the country where there's not a lot of gold.
Steve,
and
I don't think you're giving yourself enough credit. I got a feeling you've got a big following that's going to listen in. But yeah, we do have our normal group. Not a lot of gold, but yeah, there's going to be a big following.
Yeah, but I haven't found anybody that's not interested in looking for gold, though. I mean, that's the thing. I'm sure you'd love to go. Yeah, I bet you'd love to go out and find a gold nugget with a metal detector.
Absolutely.
So if you'll let me just grab the mic here for a second, I just wanted to try and, for somebody that's listening right now that's never looked for gold, doesn't really know anything about it, and hold on, somebody's trying to call me. I need to get rid of that. I'm like, okay, I didn't lose you, right?
Nope, we're here.
Okay, good. I got rid of that other call. I don't know how to do this new phone stuff very well. Anyway, I'm sure there's people out there that are thinking, hey, I'd love to go nugget hunting, and there's just a couple things I'd like to make sure they get out of the show. Number one, you do need to go where gold is found, and unfortunately, it's not found everywhere. If you look at Texas as really a good example, if you've got coal or oil in the ground, if you're in oil country or you're in coal country, coal and oil are like the exact opposite of gold geology. So if you're in an area that's got a lot of oil, like Texas or back east in any of the coal producing areas, those are areas where you're just not going to have any luck at all looking for gold nuggets. The two generally just don't mix very well. Even in Alaska, which is well known for gold, we've got a lot of oil up there, of course, and in the oil regions, there is no gold. So it's kind of like one or the other, but you very rarely get both in the same location. So, it is very important if anybody's interested in looking for gold nuggets. It does come down to some research and making sure you're getting into areas where there is gold. And then secondarily to that, trying to get access to the ground can be very difficult. And I could make a whole show out of that, but what it boils down to is this is an area where I'm going to point people at my website at detectorprospector.com. There's a tremendous amount of information on there on where to go, the locations in every single state where gold is found, and a lot of information on research and how to go about researching gold locations, how to know if there's mining claims, how to make sure you're not getting on places you shouldn't. So I really would aim people at the website there, because I can definitely help you out. If you're interested in looking for gold and want to know where to go and how to look for it, go there. So I wanted to make sure we got that out there for folks, because if you're in Texas, unfortunately, you're just in the wrong part of the country. You're going to have to come my way a little more west to get into gold country. Mm-hmm. And then as far as nugget hunting machines, if you were to talk to like the Australians, and I've got a lot of Australians hang out on my forums and stuff, they are very much in a different world down there with mineralization and the kind of gold they're looking for, to where they would literally tell most people that looking for gold with a VLF metal detector is a complete waste of time and money. Mm-hmm. And in Australia, there's a lot of truth to that. You really do need to be using the big gun mine lab pulse induction machines if you want to have much success down under when it comes to looking for gold. But the United States is different. We have a lot of gold in the western U.S. that are, a lot of the ground is mineralized, but the reality is a lot of the areas that I hunt are not very mineralized at all. Northern Nevada is relatively mild mineralization. California is all over the map. There's stuff that's mineralized, but there's a lot of areas that are easy to hunt. I've been able to easily find gold in the United States anywhere with a VLF metal detector. And you don't have to have a $8,000 GPZ 7000, or you don't have to have a $3,000 PI mine lab to find gold. And I want people to know that if you've got literally the $499 basic gold bug from Fisher, just not even the Gold Bug Pro, the $649 one, but just the basic $499 gold bug, I promise you that's a perfectly capable gold nugget machine for $500 that I can go out, I can find gold with it. Anybody that's got any nugget hunting capability whatsoever should be able to find gold with a $499 gold bug. So this is not something that requires a lot of money. You don't have to put a ton of bucks into it. And, if you're really getting serious, you're someone like me that prospects a lot, sure, it's worth the money to invest in some of those higher dollar machines. But these other VLF metal detectors are perfectly capable.
Real quick, I'm sorry. you are going to get better performance and depth out of a PI machine, though, right? Like the GPXs.
Well, the trick on PI is a bit of a misunderstanding with them, and that people think they actually go massively deeper than a VLF. And if you were to air test a Minelab GPZ or GPX 5000, for instance, with an 11-inch coil on it, just the stock coil, if you were to air test it against, say, a Fisher F75, you'd be surprised. There's not a lot of difference in air testing, and in mild ground, there's not a lot of difference. What makes a pulse induction machine so important to prospectors is when you get into a lot of gold areas, the mineralization can be extreme. And it's not unlike what people run into at Culpeper, where they're relic hunting, and for a very good reason. A lot of guys there are now all swinging Minelab PI machines. It's not really because they go so much deeper per se, it's that they handle that ground mineralization that just wipes out the VLFs. The VLFs just won't get any depth at all. I mean, they're tapping out at 4 or 5 inches, and the PIs just keep on trucking. They eat mineralization up like it's not even there hardly. So the fact that a prospector is going to end up in mineralized ground and going to end up with places that have a lot of hot rocks, that alone favors a pulse induction machine. The VLFs can get real problematic in extreme mineralization, very hard to operate, and frankly, you've got to be a real pro with a VLF to run it in some of those intense mineralized areas, especially with hot rocks everywhere. Will just drive you crazy. Right. So the PI definitely has got. There's places where you just flat have to have one, because you turn on a VLF and it's just going to go off on the ground everywhere you put the coil now.
Where you're at now, is that what you're saying?
No, not at all. It's fairly mild ground here, but I know places in California here, or Arizona. Arizona's got some really nasty ground down there, and some of the stuff in the high Sierras. You get on serpentine bedrock loaded with magnetite, and the VLF detectors just hate it. You can make them run, but they lose over half their depth, just disappears instantly.
Okay. Hey, real quick, I want to. Noel has a question. Steve, can you go over the difference between hunting BLM land out west and mineral rights and finding the owner out east, please?
Well, we'll keep it real short, because again, that can get pretty in depth. But I hunt BLM land a lot in Nevada, because we've got a lot of open BLM land out there, and I shouldn't say most, but a whole lot of BLM land is open to mineral claims and mining claims. And so you do have to be able to do some basic research. Luckily, I'm going to plug one site in particular out there, landmatters.org. Land Matters is basically a land mapping website, and they map on their site the various BLM claims. So you can go right there, it's free, and pull up various portions of, say, Nevada, California, whatever, and get a real good idea of where mining claims are. The good news is you can get it narrowed down pretty well, but the bad news is you can't get it right down to the last foot. The BLM website that has mining claim information on it only really gets a claim down to about a quarter section. So, a section is roughly a mile by mile. So you've got a corner of that, a quarter mile by quarter mile area. And all that website will be able to tell you is that, well, there's a couple, 2, 3 claims in that little block of land there. But I've used that constantly, though, because what I do is I just don't fuss with it. What you can do is look at that and say, okay, that little chunk there, I know there's a few claims in there, so I need to be careful. I need to be looking for markers. But what I'll do is I'll look at the ground right next door, the section next to it that has absolutely no claims. If you're in close proximity to areas that have gold, you've got a good chance of finding gold. And so Land Matters is a really good website. There's a couple other ones that out there that map, and you can use those to at least get a good idea of what's in the area. And they actually have the owners. I mean, you can click on the claims and it'll give you the owner information. It'll tap right into BLM. And if nothing else, you can try to contact the people and get permission to get access to the claims. So, nice. Again, my website, I've got long tutorials on that kind of information on my website. So I would recommend people go there to delve into the details. But it's all about finding that out. I do a lot of land research, and another really handy app, honestly, these days would be good for you guys anywhere in the country is that I think it's OnX, ONX Hunt app, and it's a private property mapping app that's designed for hunters, people who are, turkey hunters and stuff.
Yeah.
But it's on your phone, on whatever, and it'll show you private property parcels in the area, and that can be extremely handy for, either staying off the guy's property or for trying to contact them and get permission to get access. So I use OnX to track down the private property stuff, and then I use Land Matters to track down anything to do with the mining claims.
Nice. That's a good bit of information. And for our listeners, of course, I'm putting in the chat right now. I'm putting these links up, but onxmaps altogether.com and mylandmatters.org, and of course, I'm guessing, Steve, they can find probably this stuff on detectorprospector.com.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I've got, like I say, there's whole sections on my website that are designed to be nothing but how to help you research land. And also Land Matters itself has quite a bit of information on that kind of stuff too. So, but I've written a couple tutorials on my website that literally walks you through it step by step on how to figure this stuff out.
That's great.
And you can just ask on the forum. You can get on the forum there and just ask, and we'll walk you through it again. No problem.
Absolutely. It's funny. Noel's the one who asked that. I can't say his last name. Miavez, maybe. He actually, it was kind of funny. He sent me a link earlier to, and I haven't got a chance to read it. It's been a busy afternoon, but he sent me a link to read that. I think it's about him and his son going out metal detecting, but it was to your forum he posted. So I thought that was pretty cool, and I don't think he had known yet that we was even having you on as a guest. So I thought that was pretty cool. Yeah, great website. Check it out for sure. But so
now I'm obviously a little more serious than some folks. I mean, I spend most of my time looking for gold nuggets when it comes down to hours out there. So I do use a Minelab GPZ 7000, which is $7,000 metal detector, and that seems crazy. It's like who spends $8,000 on a metal detector, but I've found roughly 2 pounds of gold with mine since I got it. So, right. There's a little bit of a difference when you're into the gold prospecting thing. The machines are very expensive, but at the same time, if you're racking up any amount of gold, it's pretty easy to pay for a metal detector. I mean, I've found single nuggets that paid for metal detectors with no problem. So it's just a matter of getting out there and stacking it up.
Exactly. Yeah, I've heard of that. Exactly, people, I've heard stories of people going, retiring to Arizona, Nevada, California, and making a nice, supplemental paycheck by going out gold hunting.
It was, yeah, that was honestly real common about 20 years ago. And I'm sorry to say it is getting harder. Unfortunately, just like a park, every time you pull a nugget out of the ground, well, they don't grow back. I mean, nobody's dropping silver coins anymore. Nobody's growing gold nuggets. Right. And so a lot of the areas, like down in Quartzsite, that was a real big area 20 years ago. Man, they pulled a lot of gold out of there. And all over Nevada, a lot of places that people were going out and they were doing extremely well. Now it's getting a lot harder. I mean, I put in a lot of hours, and I don't want people to think it's just a matter of going out there and getting rich with a metal detector, because
right.
I very often, I mean, a couple grams of gold in a day would be kind of a worthy goal. It's not like you're talking ounces per day. You're just talking maybe a nugget or two in a day, and it definitely takes a lot of hours and a lot of patience. Last summer I was out doing this, looking for gold spots, and just exactly what we're talking about. I did some research in northern Nevada. I found an area where gold had been found, but I made sure there was no mining claims. But there was little pits and trenches and prospects in the area. You can see them on Google Earth even. And so I went out there looking, to see if I could find some gold on this unclaimed ground. I knew there was gold in the area, but I'm literally out there with my GPZ 7000, dawn to dusk, 12-hour days detecting. I spent 4 days out there metal detecting, and I finally found one gold nugget.
Oh.
So, that's just not unusual. Those are the stories people don't tell you, that there's trips where you're out there day after day after day, you're not finding any gold, digging nails, bullets, stuff like that. It's not all just a go out and fill up the pockets of gold thing. And unfortunately, that's just the truth of it. But the guys that are doing it like I do, you might go 2 weeks finding not a bit of gold and then get into one spot and find a couple ounces in a few hours. So
right.
It does have a way of catching up after a while.
Now, I want to pause you for a second. We've got questions. Let me find it. I'm sorry. I got to scroll back up. Bill wants to know, what's the biggest nugget you've found?
I always wanted to find a 1 pound nugget, there's 12 troy ounces in a troy pound, so it's not the same weight thing. A troy pound is a little bit, a troy ounce is heavier than a regular ounce, but a troy pound is a little lighter than a regular pound. It's just kind of a nice round number, but the two largest nuggets I've found are each at a half pound. I've got a 6.5 ounce, just solid chunk of gold that I found a few years ago up in Alaska, up in the 40-mile country, up in a public prospecting site. It's all on my website, the story and where it was and everything, where it was found. About a 4-day drive from Nevada to get there, but 6.5 ounces, that nugget probably worth a good $15,000.
Right, and that's why you can afford a $7,000 detector.
Yeah, and that was found with that was found with a Minelab GPX 5000, and then quite a few years ago, I did find another 6.5 ounce nugget with a White's MXT up at Gaines Creek in Alaska. So
wow.
It took me 2 nuggets to make the pound, but between those 2 nuggets, I guess I found my 1 pounder in 2 chunks.
That's incredible.
And then I found so many 1 to 3 ounce nuggets, I honestly couldn't tell you. I mean, those have been fairly common finds for me over the years.
Mm-hmm. The second question Bill has is, do you go back and dredge or pan any areas where you found nuggets?
Yeah, actually, and that's a great question, because the reality is I got my start gold dredging. I mean, I tried metal detecting for gold back in the 70s, but frankly, it was kind of a waste of time. So I didn't bother for a long time. I went gold dredging, panning, high banking, sluicing, you name it. And that was pretty much my way to go get gold for a long, long time. And it really wasn't until about, I think, 1998 is when I officially hung up gold dredging and shifted to metal detecting for gold nuggets. But
now
definitely, you can get into spots.
Why did you switch it up?
Go ahead. 2 reasons. Number one, that around 1998, if you went back and looked, that's when gold actually dropped below 300 an ounce. So part of the problem I was getting then was that running a gold dredge is a lot of work in Alaska. I mean, you're talking hauling a 6-inch dredge by myself into canyons and gorges and packing the fuel in and ice cold water. I literally dredged in ice and a dry suit. So it got to the point where I was going, man, this is way too much work for the amount of gold dollars I was actually getting. So it seemed like metal detecting offered a way to get out of that cold water. And then I also wanted to start finding bigger nuggets. My gold dredging was producing a lot of gold, but it was typically smaller gold. And I decided I wanted to go find big gold nuggets. And metal detecting definitely is good for that. But back to the guy's question, yeah, when you're out detecting, especially in places here like, say, Nevada, you could get into an area, find a little bit of gold, and go back with a dry washer, for instance. And, I've got a friend that's done just that, get into a spot, find a few nuggets, and then I got one letter. I said, man, you need to go in there with a dry washer. And he went in and pulled a bunch more gold out. So a metal detector is typically going to find the shallowest stuff, the biggest stuff, but it's certainly not going to find everything that's there. It's going to miss the smaller gold and the deeper gold. And so it is a practical way to find spots, perhaps, to go back and dry wash or, use a gold dredge or a sluice box or whatever's permissible. So, yeah, good question.
I'm curious, what's the biggest nugget you've found now in Nevada since you've moved to Nevada? Is there anything? I'm sure there's nothing too comparable, right? I mean,
well, no, there's big gold here for sure. It's just that it's a little harder to find down here.
Okay.
The biggest I hunt both California and Nevada. The biggest one I found in Nevada so far is about 3/4 of an ounce. Just a beautiful, beautiful nugget, and quite a few 1/4 ounce nuggets. Just some really, just gorgeous gold. California, I've actually found a couple specimens. I've got one that's 2.5 ounce, probably half gold, half quartz, museum quality specimen that I found over there. That was actually with the first Nocta metal detector when I was test running the early Nocta Force Gold before anybody even heard of the company. I got lucky and banged into that specimen with it, so it made for a heck of a story.
Oh, that's
and summer before last, I've got a 6 ounce specimen that I found over there. It's probably only got about 2 ounces of gold in it, but it's a fist-sized chunk of quartz with gold just sticking out all over it, and that's also from California. So,
wow.
There's some nice gold here, and compared to Alaska gold, honestly, the Nevada and California gold is much prettier, much purer gold, just a rich, buttery yellow color that Alaska gold, a lot of it is lower purity and has a lot of rock in it. And frankly, it's just kind of ugly looking stuff, but it is gold, so
Right.
I guess people say there's no ugly gold, but I've got my 6.5 ouncer I found with the White's MXT. I actually called it the ugly nugget because it was just, it was ugly. It had a lot of brown rock kind of sticking out of it. And wasn't very attractive, but it was big. So I'll take it.
Yeah, right. I don't know how you could call something that big ugly. I don't know. That's funny.
Yeah. Now, realistically, though, honestly, most people, if you could, what you really want to be shooting for, if you want to go look for gold here in Nevada, California, Arizona, and stuff, what you want to do is have a machine that's capable of finding, 0.5 gram to 2 gram kind of stuff. So, fairly small bits of gold, but that's the bread and butter that you're finding on a regular basis is 1/2 grammers and grammars, which are, you're talking something like size of a split shot type of gold, not, end of an eraser type of thing. So that's the kind of stuff a good VLF will find. I mean, you've got metal detectors yourself that'll find that kind of gold. And then to get the really, really tiny stuff, though, that's where you need some of these hotter machines like the new Macro Gold Cruiser coming out soon, or the Fisher Gold Bug 2, or, that Minelab Gold Monster is really hot on tiny gold. So the nice thing about the hot machines is there's a lot more little gold out there than big gold. So if you've got a really hot machine, your chances of actually finding something are improved just because there's so many little nuggets out there.
Mm-hmm. Now, the Force Gold, what'd you think about that?
Well, it was funny because nobody had even heard of it. This was, 5 years ago when nobody had heard of it. I'd never heard of them. And it was on one of the forums, somebody suggested the Nocta people were kind of, talking about their machine, and everybody's like, well, we don't know who you are, foreign country. You should get someone that, you should maybe get that Steve guy to try your detector out. And they got a hold of me, and I told them, I said, well, you can send me a detector, but I'm telling you right now, I'll just tell people what I think about it. I mean, it's that simple. That's the deal. If you're not worried about it, if you got faith in a machine, send it to me. And I was very positively impressed by the machine, but I'll tell you what impressed me more. If anyone goes out and looks for that, the review is still out there. It's just Google Steve's detailed review of the Nocta Force Gold, and you'll find it. But the machine itself was, a very good machine, but it's a 15 kilohertz, just general purpose. It's not any more sensitive, say, than, like a Garrett AT or any of the White's MXT. It's in that same ballpark. But what was really cool is, if you read the original report, they had rocker switches on the control box, and I said, boy, those are going to get crud in them, and they're going to lock up. You need to have touch pads. The scuff covers were too thin. They broke the first time I took them off, and I said, yeah, the scuff covers are thin, and there was a couple other little odds and ends I forget, but I commented on, and I'm used to doing that with a lot of the metal detectors, Fisher, Garrett, White, whatever. You get one and you say, well, there's this or that. Well, honestly, I don't expect them to ever do anything. I mean, I've never had Fisher or Whites or Garrett or anybody, when they send you a machine, it's basically done, and they want you to give it a spin and tell people about it. But if you point out anything you don't like, they're like, well, that's the way it is.
Right.
I was stunned because Nocta, within 30 days, they made thicker scuff covers for it. They replaced the rockers with the touch pads, and the couple other things that I had suggested, they did. And I was like stunned. I just like, really?
Right.
You guys actually fixed the stuff? And that's what's making Nocta and Macro kind of famous right now, is their ability to work directly with the detecting community via the forums and stuff, to get suggestions and ideas, and then they kind of custom build what you want to a certain degree. Of course, the problem at the end of the day is we all disagree at what perfect is, know. I feel sorry for them sometimes because, like on the handle and the armrest thing, if you look at Nocta Macro and you look at the 4 series and then the Racer and the Gold Racer and the Impact and now the Cruiser, they've been trying so hard to get a handle and armrest that people like, but every time they make it different to make some people happy, everybody else complains that it's not as good as what they had before. It's like they just can't win because we all have different arms and hands.
I'm a huge fan. I don't make any bones about it. I'm a huge fan of Nocta and Macro, and it's because they're innovative. They're coming out with new stuff, and they don't. I have yet to use an Equinox, and I know you've worked on that, and I don't want to, but I've used the Impact, the Impact too, but the multi-cruiser, and I would be shocked if it didn't hang right there with that Equinox. I'm very impressed.
Absolutely.
I like what they're
doing.
Yeah, but I also love that their customer service, they're known for that, and they care. It's a company that cares. And I keep telling people, give it because they're not here in the United States like some of the ones that have been here for, Minelab's been at it for 20 years here in the United States, and of course you got the big ones that have been here forever. The next couple of years, I think you're going to see Nocta and Macro really start to catch on. I do. They're
well, they're so fast. I mean, let's face it. When we look, all of us are frustrated when you watch like Garrett and Whites and Fisher in particular, the companies that have been around forever, and Tesoro, of course, they just stopped making new machines. They just got the same old. Mm-hmm. But look at like Garrett with that GTI 2500. It's like, really? Right. You guys haven't changed your flagship machine in 20 years now? What is taking so long? And Fisher, everybody's frustrated. It's just what's taking so long. And so Macro and Nocta are really funny because I've actually seen people complain that they're coming out with too many models too quickly. I mean, it's like, darn it, I just got one and now you came out with another one. And so it's almost like it's irritating people. But what's happening is they've come out of nowhere with some really goofy looking metal detectors. And within just a very few years now, that multi-cruiser compares favorably with the absolute best made by anybody. I mean, it's a flagship metal detector. It goes head to head with the best Fisher, the best Garrett's, the best Minelabs, the best Whites. And this is from a company that no one even heard of 5 years ago. So I think you're absolutely right that they've not only, at this point, they've caught up. And in the next couple of years, I'm pretty excited what we might see coming out of those folks, because if they've caught up, the next step is to pull ahead.
Right, exactly. Even Minelab, that is very innovative. They're about every 5 years they're coming out with a new detector, and that, I mean, I think the E-Track to the CT, well, I think from the Explorers to the E-Track to the CTX, if I remember right, it was like 5 years on the nose. And I think that's good. That's where Nocta and Macro, they're just like, well, here's this one, and it seems like each time they do that, it's a better detector. Like they're really listening to what people are wanting and the feedback, and they're doing it. I'm very impressed with the company. I am, and we'll see. I mean, time will tell. And I think, I believe you and I actually spoke about this on the last podcast. I think Fisher will be. I hope, but I think they're going to come out with something new, or we hope anyhow. But
I've got big expectations out of them. White's is kind of real quiet right now. You never know what might happen with them, but Fisher in particular, they've got a top-notch engineering staff. They've got a healthy cash flow. They're doing a lot of business in Africa and overseas that's putting money in the coffers for design, research, and development, and so. And they've been lagging. I mean, the fact is, it's an open secret that they're working on some top-notch stuff in the lab. And I expect in the next couple of years we're going to see some pretty hot product from them.
Yep.
So.
I think so
well,
too.
Time will tell, I guess. But it's exciting times because I right now, honestly, the metal detectors that we have currently are so good. If everybody stopped making metal detectors tomorrow, I'm cool, man. I mean, I'm good. I'm good. I've got great metal detectors. I don't really need to ever have another metal detector for the rest of my life, because what I've got right now is also good. I can hunt, for as long as I'm physically able, and be doing well at it.
I say that, and then things like the Equinox comes out and the Multi-Cruiser, and then it's like, ooh, I'd sure like to have one of those. So. I don't know. I agree with you.
Well, Minelab, one thing about Minelab I got to give them huge credit on is that they actually do advance the technology. I mean, I think a lot of us out there are kind of frustrated at just seeing the same metal detectors getting kind of repackaged and re-put out, and
yes.
Do we need another version of this? It's like, no, I want to see something different. And so, when it comes to actual new technology, the GPZ 7000, I mean, outside of the nugget hunting realm, a lot of people aren't very familiar with that machine, but it actually is next generation technology. I mean, that machine is not a pulse induction machine, and it's not a straight up VLF. It's actually a hybrid of the two. It's got the depth of a pulse induction machine, but it also has the ability to have discrimination added to it. And that machine really is the next generation that everybody's been waiting for. That's just that most people don't know that it's already arrived. But when we see the next...
Which detector did you say? I didn't catch the
GPZ 7000.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. That machine is using literally next generation technology, and right now it's a go beep on everything, dig it up machine. But the next step on that detector is going to be to add some sort of discrimination capability, and when that happens, it's going to be a pretty amazing machine. I mean, if you took that 7000 and just added the ability to discriminate ferrous halfway well, it'll take the relic market by storm. Right now it's just too sensitive to tiny trash, and there's no way to tune it out. But so anyway, we've got Minelab that's doing some amazing things on the technology, and then we've got Macro Nocta that are just putting out machines like crazy. So all I can say is the U.S. manufacturers need to step it up and get with the program, because these guys are they're getting aggressive.
I agree. I think, why or how they got into the whole routine of repackaging, renaming, adding some letters behind, I mean, there's some great detectors they're doing that with, but it's still, come on, hey, something new. I think.
Well, I can actually tell you why on that to a certain degree. What I can give you two specific examples actually, but the U.S. manufacturers for a long time, there's not a lot of engineers out there that actually know how to make a metal detector. I mean, it's an oddball field. And so White's is a really good example with the GMT and the MXT, for instance, in that they needed a out-of-house talent. They hired Dave Johnson basically for a couple, 2-3 years, just temporarily. They didn't add him permanently, which was honestly their mistake, but they hired him long enough for him to design the GMT MXT. And then when the project's done, they basically let him go. Well, so he designed the basics of a couple machines for them, and the MXT then, once he got it in the box, they needed to take what they put into the design development and everything, and they needed to milk it for as long as possible. So you went from the MXT to the MXT 300, which was just the same machine in a different flat black with a bigger coil, and the MXT All Pro, and and then Dave, actually, the next thing he did was Tesoro hired him. Same deal, though. It was a temporary job where they hired him to design the Tesoro Lobo. And as soon as the Lobo was designed, and I think he did the Diablo for him, and after those couple machines, then they let him go. So now here we are, all these years later, they're still milking that Tesoro Lobo that Dave Johnson did for him decades ago. So the U.S. manufacturers got in this habit of basically making a push, developing a new platform, and then they wanted to get at least 10 years out of it before they did anything else. Yeah. And if you look, that's the way up. They've all done it. I mean, Garrett did the same thing. And you look at their machines, they're typically on the market for over 10 years. They all got in this over 10-year habit. Well, then you get Minelab come along, and heck, they were putting out a new gold machine every 2 years like clockwork. It was just SD2000, SD2100, SD2200, GP Extreme, GP3000, GP3500, GPX4000, GPX4500, 4800, 5000. They put out more machines in literally 5 years than White's did in 20 years.
And all so, of them were improvements.
Well, every single one of them is if you look machine to machine, it's just a little bit of improvement, but every one of those little improvements adds up, and over time, it does really matter. So I see Macro Naka doing the same thing right now. They're doing this, just pumping out machines like crazy. It's almost too much, too fast, but as a result, they're getting ahead quickly. So all I could say is, you U.S. manufacturers out there listening, you need to ramp up your cycle at least a little bit, for gosh sakes. I mean, you need to start looking at machines more often than every 10 years. I mean, it's just not working, and you're going to get passed up if they don't do it.
Minelab I agree, they've been very, very on top of that, and they've really, I remember back probably almost 20 years ago now. Oh, when was the Explorer XS came out, and then the Explorer, I want to say the Explorer 2, I think it was around the Explorer 2, if I remember right, was the second one out. They started getting a name here in the United States, and I remember being in some of the forums and watching people post stuff, and nobody believed them. They were being called out as liars because the technology, I'll tell you what, you take a Minelab XS, which came out, I believe, around 99, 2000, and I would put that against any current metal detector for coin hunt, deep coins, deep silver.
Oh, yeah.
And it's still, I mean, that's how innovative they are. You don't hear anything about the old Explorers now. You barely hear about the E-Track, but you take those detectors, and I guarantee I could out hunt just about anybody looking for old silver with the current detectors, and that really speaks volumes for Minelab. There's some great detectors out on the market, but going back to the repackaging, I am a huge fan of Garrett. I think they hit a home run with the AT Pro and then pinpointers, but I think they took a big step back with the AT Max. I know we're getting way off topic here, and I apologize, but I've heard as much bad about the Max as I have good. Now there's people that love it and people that hate it, but as the Equinox came out and the cruisers, man, you see less and less about the Max.
Yeah, it's honestly, a lot of it was just the timing. I mean, the Max hit the market, and then the Equinox got announced, and that pulled a lot of the thunder away from the AT Max, especially when the Max, I think, disappointed people, in that a lot of Garrett people, I do believe, we're looking for a multi-frequency machine at this point. Because, I mean, hey, we've already got the AT Pro and we've got the AT Gold, so
right.
You're looking at that going, well, we already got a good 15 kilohertz do everything machine, and we've got this 18 kilohertz kind of low conductor gold machine. So wouldn't it make sense to have something different? And so I think when they came out with just another single frequency machine, there was at least a number of people out there that were saltwater hunters that were disappointed.
Yeah.
But, it's almost like they... If anything, the AT Max, I haven't used one, but everything I've heard about it reminds me of being the early Fisher F75. I mean, when the Fisher F75 came out, it was a really hot, really sparky machine, had a lot of EMI issues in urban areas and stuff, and, you're running at almost the same frequency as a F75, so it's like Garrett kind of stuffed an F75 in a waterproof box, And,
well, I think they took their AT Pro and just, ran it
jacked
to its
it up.
limit. Yeah, jacked it to its limits. But, if you go back, if anybody goes back and listens to some of the archives, I don't know when it exactly what shows it be on. When the AT Max was first announced, a lot of people were upset it was in the same package, and I was defending Garrett, saying, you got to understand what it takes to repackage something. I mean, to probably get a simple mold up just to make a new head is probably $10,000 plus. Well,
it's the most expensive part of making a new metal detector by far, is the housing and coil and of the physical, the actual physical parts pieces, the new molds and designs and stuff. That's the big bucks. That's why you see things change so slowly from some of these guys, that they just have to use the same old housings forever.
And I was on the show saying, hey, give them a chance. Let's see what it does, and it could be something completely new and kind of the same box, and they did that to keep the price down. But everything I'm hearing, it sounds like exactly, they just they're running it on the ragged edge, and it's the same kind of detector.
Yeah. I'll tell you what I like most about Garrett right now is they seem to be doing the best job, in my opinion, of putting together like this, what I call an ecosystem of products, where everything kind of works with each other. You've got the 3 AT models. They all share coils. You've got the pinpointer now is coming out that ties into their wireless headphones, and they've got the wireless headphones that work, of course, with the AT Max, but they've also got the Z-Link system, and it works with the headphones, and you can bet they're going to retrofit the wireless into the other models at some point, right, where it's got this really good ecosystem of products that work well together, that share coils, fabulous pinpointers, good wireless headphone system. Whereas, now, I'm a Minelab fan in a lot of ways, but they drive me crazy because nothing they make ever works with anything else they make. It's like they start over. Everything's different. Every machine comes out, it looks different. Some of them, like the Gold Monster or the SDC 2300, are totally unique to themselves. Nothing else like them. Right. And their wireless system, you've got a wireless module on the CTX 3030, Well, you've got one on the GPZ 7000, and they won't interchange, and then they come out with their ProSonic system, and it won't work with the two prior modules, and then they come out with the Equinox, and it's got a module, and it won't work with all the other modules. It's like,
yeah.
You'd swear they have no, there appears to be no plan for making everything work together. It's just all different stuff. So
right.
Garrett does a really good job at that, and their detectors are really good performers at really affordable prices. Yeah. So for a whole lot of people out there, Garrett are doing a real good job. It's just that the AT Max maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and there are people that love it and are getting. I'm just not seeing, Equinox. The cruiser and multi-cruiser, I'm only seeing good things. I mean, for the most part. I mean, you're going to have, I don't care if you build the most incredible, perfect thing in the world, there's going to be somebody that doesn't like it. But 95% or better of the people I see talking about those detectors love them. It's almost 50-50 with the Max. I mean, I'm seeing some serious complaints and issues out of that. But where I think Garrett really kind of went right, or where to some extent I think where they really did good, but also it affected the hobby, is you're seeing, I think this huge increase in metal detecting is because of Garrett. That AT Pro, I mean, at the time when that AT Pro there was nothing under $1,000 that really would go out and find deep silver coins. You might luck upon one, and there was some that were okay, but not really known for that, and the AT Pro just come out, and not only did it do that, it was waterproof, and it would do all these, it's, I don't care if they make bad machines. They could make the most horrible machines for the next 10 years, and the AT Pro they'll be remembered for.
People do forget that prior to the AT Pro, if you bought a waterproof metal detector, it was probably a funny-looking square box with 2 knobs on it. Mm-hmm. I mean, maybe 4 knobs, but there was no LCD readouts. There was almost everything that you would expect in an above water metal detector you didn't get when you bought an underwater metal detector. They were extremely expensive, and they were very feature limited. And so when the AT Pro came out, it really was amazing, because you had a fully functional above water detector that paid no weight penalty. The waterproof metal detectors then were all really heavy and bulky. This thing is compact, lightweight, could go underwater, LCD screen, all the features. It really was a tremendous breakthrough machine in a lot of ways. And everybody else has frankly tried to emulate it since. I mean, to a large degree, the multi-cruiser and the cruiser series is really just trying to do what Garrett did years ago. And of course, the Equinox is same thing. They're just trying to do what Garrett did years ago, to come up with a good waterproof, lightweight, compact machine. So, Garrett did it first. No doubt.
Yeah, absolutely. And not only was it waterproof and did great in the water, I'm telling you, it quickly became the go-to coin detector. I mean, that thing will go deep on silver coins. It works good in the trash. It's a good relic machine. I mean, they really, really hit it out of the ballpark with that detector, because I personally wasn't seeing anything, take the waterproof aspect out of it, I wasn't seeing anything comparable to performance on land for under $1,000, and I think that speaks volumes. But boy, did we really get off the. I mean, I think we're talking great stuff, but boy, did we get off the conversation of gold detecting.
Yeah, well, let's bring it back to gold here, because this part I've been very much playing down the Minelab Equinox as a prospecting metal detector. I've got. It's been brought up on my forum, and there's a few posts about it, and Jonathan Porter did a little gig about the Equinox for gold prospecting. But, I hesitate to even say too much about it, because I just don't want to get it going yet. But the bottom line is the multi-IQ technology, that machine will do so well on small gold nuggets, and in the field prospecting, it kind of was a real shocker for me. I had no expectation of that, but the machine isn't really designed to be anything other than a general purpose metal detector, and it really was kind of targeting the Garrett ATs and the Deus, so it was really aimed more at the coin and general metal detecting relic hunting market. But Minelab kind of accidentally made a machine that's extremely powerful on small, low conductors, and this thing will really perform on gold and highly mineralized ground. The only problem currently is that the coils that are out, I mean, there's only the stock coil at the moment, and then the two that are planned to come out in the future really aren't nugget hunting coils. That machine, though, with a proper coil on it, is going to surprise people in the gold nugget field, I think. But right now, I don't want to say a whole lot about it or get people going on that, because the lack of coils is one of the major holdbacks on that machine at the moment when it comes to gold nugget hunting. But I'll tell you what, electronically, it will perform. It will definitely. It will find gold. There's no doubt about it.
Steve, I've got a question for you. Is Minelab are they gonna let Nell or any of these other are you gonna have to buy Minelab coils or
I wish I knew the answer, because all I can tell you is what I've been doing, which what I have been doing is lobbying as hard as I can to Minelab every opportunity I get that they should not only let other people make coils, they should encourage other people to make coils, because one of the biggest selling points for me for a metal detector is how many coils can I get, how many sizes, shapes, and types of coils, and they would be doing themselves a favor to push that coil thing as fast and as they can, and anything they can do to get third parties to help out with that would be beneficial, I think. Yes. But Minelab, all you can do, it's like sending suggestions into a black hole. I mean, they listen, but as far as asking me what's going to happen, I got no idea. All I can do is I do hope they get some third-party outfits at it, because obviously they're so slow at getting the accessories out right now. It's driving us all crazy. So and we need that third-party help right now.
They're having a hard time getting the detector. I mean, they're only rumors that I'm hearing, but some people are talking November before the chance they'll see an 800. And
no, I don't think so. I truthfully, in that regard, I expect the 800 supply is going to be ramping up over the next 30 days. You're going to start seeing a lot more machines. I mean, the reality is, it seems, because we're all in different parts of the world, that it seems real slow, but Minelab's literally trying to supply the planet with these machines. So, you got some going to the U.S., you got some going to Australia, you got some going to Europe, and, if you make 1,000 of them, but then you can, let's say you crank out 1,000, but you can only send 300 to Europe and 400 to the U.S. and a couple hundred over here. Well, they're having a hard time catching up, but they will catch up here pretty quickly on that stuff. But
good. The
accessories are just what's driving me crazy.
That I was struggling with. I'll tell you, on the same subject, the CTX. I know it was popular and it has its own popularity, but if you go back, and you look at, like, when I think they were at their height with the E-Track, when they are at least on the coin relic aspect. I'm not talking gold, obviously. I couldn't keep them in stock. I couldn't, they were just so hot. And the CTX, things really changed, and I know people have them, I know people love them, but I really felt like they kind of shot themselves in the foot with such being limited on coils. And then like the 15-inch coil, I want to say it's over $400. I know it's expensive. It's more expensive than, and you're so limited on what you can run. I thought, man, that's a bad idea, guys. That's and I think if you looked at the sales, if they would release that at the E-Track versus the CTX, I think you'd see the sales went down drastically. I would suspect.
Well, I think you'd be surprised, Mike, because there's a lot of CTXs out there. I mean, there's a lot of them. It's just that, the thing you gotta remember is they still make the E-Track.
Yes.
So it's not like it was a either or. It's like, we're giving this one up. It's just they added another machine. So they've still got E-Trax for people that want the E-Trax. And then they add the CTX for the people that are looking for in-water capability and so forth. The big thing about the CTX, let's face it, it just costs a lot of money.
Right. Right.
It's an expensive metal detector, and so that alone has got a definite limitation that a lot of people out there are simply not going to spend that kind of money on a metal detector. So that's limited them. But I can guarantee you one thing: they make a lot of money.
Oh yeah.
Minelab at the end of the day is a publicly traded company, and so unlike a lot of these other companies that we really don't know what's going on, you can download the annual reports for Minelab and what detectors they're selling around the world. They don't give you right down to how many of this model and that model and stuff, but they've got a heck of a thing going out there with their machines. At the end of the day, they've got tremendous profit margins. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Just because you sell a machine for $8,000 doesn't mean it costs 10 times more to make. It's just that you're making a lot more money selling them is what it comes down to.
Right. Absolutely.
And they get the money for them.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, the CTX, I definitely noticed sales drop off. Like I said, I couldn't keep E-Trax in stock, and then I went from that to not selling many CTXs. You're right. It was crazy expensive. Then like a lot of people like to have when they have different coils than most people do. They want the extra shaft, and I want to say that shaft at the time, I have no clue what it is now, was like $150 for that lower shaft. I think it's even more than that. Yeah, everything for it. The shaft is an arm and a leg, and the coils are really expensive. And it's there's no way around it. I mean, it's an expensive metal detector with expensive accessories, but it's a great detector.
But it's a performing machine.
Yes, it is. Absolutely, you can't. You definitely can't knock it because it is. Real quick, Brian Harvey asked, Steve, have you ran the DTEC 15-inch Ultra sensing coil? For gold, that is. I'm curious if it actually handles gold the same as a smaller coil for the GP series machines.
No, I have not, because what unfortunately messed me up on keeping up with some of the latest coils is that I did, as soon as the GPZ 7000 came out, I sold my GPX 5000. So once I got my hands on the 7000, I haven't used any of the coils that have come out since then for the GPX series, just simply because I don't have one anymore. But, the Minelab GPX series, bang for the buck. I mean, for somebody that wants to get into gold prospecting out there, the GPX 4500 right now is only $26.99. I say only, but compared to a $7,000 machine, 2600 all of a sudden looks like a real bargain. And with the over 100 different coils available out there for the GPXs, so it's really a tough machine to beat. Bang for the buck for somebody that wants to get into prospecting and not invest $8,000. And a GPX will actually handle more situations, more varied situations better than a 7000 will, because you can get smaller coils, you can get bigger coils. It's got tuning options for salt flats and salt water and things that there are places where a 7000 has difficulty. It has difficulty in alkali soil. It has some difficulty with certain hot rocks that a GPX can actually handle well. So, if I had to own one metal detector and travel the world going to many different locations with no idea what to expect, I'd probably go back to one of the GPXs, the GPX 5000 myself, and rather than the 7000, because the 7000 is a little more problematic in certain areas and situations, where a GPX will handle anything you can throw at it. And those new coils are really getting the performance close enough to the 7000 that you're kind of splitting hairs sometimes on the stuff.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that. I think Brian's got, I'm not sure, I think he's got a 5000. I know he relic hunts in Virginia, and I know he's got one of the GPXs. Real quick, let me. We're getting a lot of questions. If anybody wants to call in, I haven't even thrown a number out there. If you got a question for Steve, give us a call, 682-459-2977. Again, that's 682-459-2977. I know most people like to use the chat, and we don't usually get a lot of callers, but I wanted to put that out there in case anybody had a question for Steve. So feel free to give us a call. I think we're getting close to the end of the show. I know we kind of went. I could just talk to you for hours and hours, Steve. Metal detecting.
Well, we're both blabbermouths, you know.
I know I am. I mean, that's why shows run.
I can talk metal detecting. We could probably talk all week, you know. It's like we'll have a marathon until somebody just passes out.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I do that often. I talk to people every chance I can. I can't get enough of it. It's just all consuming. Matter of fact, some of the people that call me, Steph will say, which wife's calling you now? Which one of your wives she calls you? So, okay, here we got a caller. Who do we got calling in? Who do we got?
That's Matt.
This is wife number one right here, Steve. Me and Matt talk all the time. She'll go, is that your wife? Yeah, it's Matt. What are you doing, Matt?
Well, I was really just kind of curious if there's any, out of curiosity, like, you know, some of the gold machines that are obviously geared and made for gold, if there's anything that he would say is equally effective or versatile for coin shooting as well, as opposed to gold prospecting. I had heard some stuff a while back from George. I think it was George that said that AT Gold was just a phenomenal machine for coins as well. But just kind of curious.
Yeah, absolutely. And we kind of touched on that at the beginning of the show, but each of the manufacturers right now makes a machine that runs somewhere in that 13 to 20 kilohertz range. That's kind of a general purpose do everything machine. So Garrett, since you mentioned the Garrett AT Gold, the Garrett AT Gold is a perfectly capable machine for coin hunting, relic hunting, jewelry hunting, and yeah, you can go prospect for gold with it and find gold nuggets with it. And is it going to go up against a multi-$1,000 prospecting machine? Well, no, but I guarantee you, I can take a Garrett AT Gold and I can go out prospecting with it this week, and I can go find gold with it. And the same could be said of White's MX Sport, MXT models, the Fisher Goldbug Pro, and the Technetics G2 series, the G2 Pluses. Any of those 19 kilohertz, anything made by Fisher Technetics that runs at 19 kilohertz is going to be a good all-around machine that'll do well at gold prospecting.
Hey, Steve, real quick.
There's a lot of good do-it-alls.
He caught the beginning of the show. I think what he's asking, is there a good, like really good coin detector relic and would do gold? And that's probably going to be like the AT Gold. Matt, you just got the cruiser off of me. You bought a cruiser off of us. Man, that would probably do really good on gold being
Mac,
what? Go ahead.
I guarantee you the cruiser, I've used the Nakas and various macros for prospecting, and either the Impact or the multi-cruiser running at the 1920 kilohertz settings are going to do just fine as VLF prospecting machines. They're perfectly capable at that. Anything, once you get up into those mid-teens on up to 20 kilohertz range, those are all very good capable prospecting metal detectors for people that want to own a do-it-all machine. Again, I'm not saying that that's what the professional prospectors out there are necessarily going to want to run. They tend to want to use dedicated machines. But for a person that is going to spend most of their time, maybe you live back east and you're a relic coin hunter and this and that, and you just want to go west or go to somewhere in the east like Georgia where there's a little gold and go prospecting, you don't need to buy a machine just for that. There's a lot of these general purpose machines that can do very well at it.
Yeah, I'm going to guess if you visit California twice a year for a total of 2 weeks, you probably aren't going to want to invest, $7,000 in a gold machine.
No.
Well, my wife wouldn't want me to invest that kind of money, but
right, but you might, yeah.
No, yeah, you definitely nailed my question in that, I'm generally coin hunting. I'm trying to do a little more relic hunting and really trying to get into more of that. But I got the Cruiser, I got the Impact, and I was, I guess, kind of curious too. Like, and you just answered the question, but it was kind of, how did you feel about those machines? As for a guy that's going to go, maybe once, twice a year, might hit an area where he goes out gold prospecting, if that, But yeah.
Good deal.
Yeah, truthfully, for anybody that's out there that's curious about this sort of stuff, it all boils down to if you can find small aluminum or small lead. I mean, if you've got a machine and you're out there digging birdshot, I guarantee you can find gold nuggets. And if you've got a machine that you're taking to the beach and you're finding little wadded up balls of aluminum foil and stuff, those machines will find gold nuggets just as well. In fact, my best advice to people that want to learn how to nugget hunt, I tell them to go aluminum detecting. Just go out and find the smallest bits of aluminum you can find. And if you can find, I can go to a beach, and when those guys rip that square tab off of a beer can, that little bitty rivet that holds it on there, I can find those rivets with my metal detectors, not the tab, but just that little small aluminum rivet. I go to the little tot lots and stuff, and those stupid little glitter things that they've got on their jackets and pants and stuff these days, I don't even know what you call that stuff, but they're little sparkly things. Mm-hmm. Man, I can find those things with a metal detector, So if you can find little non-ferrous stuff with your metal detector, you can find a gold nugget.
Well, I know for a fact on the beach with my 30-30, I can easily I've pulled a bunch of those little rivet pieces off of the pop tabs to just that little chunk of stuff that's broken off of the pop tab. I've pulled those, and I can find those with no problem. But yeah, I don't know. I don't go out gold prospecting, but I'd like to.
The CTX, would that handle the mineralization there?
The CTX is actually it's an okay machine for looking for gold nuggets, but
it's not going to
it does. Yeah, it's when it gets into intense mineralization, it does fine for coin hunting and stuff like that. But on low conductors, it's just okay. Let's put it that way. It's not bad, but for a $2,500 machine, it's not like as hot on gold as a lot of less expensive machines. I mean, if you said, "Hey, we're going to go out tomorrow, Steve, and I'll give you the CTX, or you could grab the Impact," I'm grabbing the Impact. It's the CTX is. I know guys that have found gold nuggets with it. Don't get me wrong; it can find gold. It's just that typically it's got to be a little bit bigger nugget and a little shallower than what the other machines would do.
Did you get that, Matt?
Yeah, and that sounds exactly about what I would expect to hear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I never understood why E-Track, any of the Explorers, these multi-frequency machines like the CTX and E-Track, they never really have done good on gold. And they don't handle mineralization real well, or extreme mineralization, and you'd think that multiple frequency, and I know they only run 3 frequencies at a time and all that, but I don't know, I've always wondered why that is.
Well, it's actually fairly simple when you get right down to it. What do you want the machine to really do? And at the end of the day, the Explorers and the E-Track and the CTX, because it's basically the same machines,
right,
they were designed first and foremost to find silver. They are built as the best silver finding machines in the world. Well, silver is a high conductor, so they tune those machines up to find high conductors. And what they didn't want it to do was to be too sparky and make all kinds of little signals on stuff and getting tiny signals on little aluminum foil trash and things. That's not what a silver hunter wants. A silver hunter wants a nice, quiet, well-behaved machine that just punches deep on silver.
Right.
The Equinox is a perfect example of what happens if you try to have it all by taking the Equinox and saying, okay, now we want to make a multi-frequency machine that's really hot on low conductors. It's hot on gold. It's hot on tiny stuff. Well, the problem is a lot of the people that are used to E-Track CKX are finding out is that makes for a sparkier machine, a hotter machine, a machine that picks up birdshot and little trash and is noisier on the ground. So the truth is it's just a direct trade-off. I mean, you can make a machine that's great on silver, but if you really focus on that, you probably actually don't want it to be too hot on tiny non-ferrous low conductors, because that's not what the guy wants. The guy's looking for silver. And so that's literally why it is the way it is. They designed those machines to be the best silver machines, but the gold capability was not what they were really after. Equinox is almost exactly the opposite. They really put all the punch into the low end on the machines, and so it's really great on low conductors, but that also makes it a little more, it's a sparkier machine. It's a little noisier. It's a little hotter across the board, and so some CTX E-Track people don't like that.
Right.
I got another question.
Go for it.
Okay.
Yeah.
What I'm curious, another thing I was curious about, you know, and like I said, I mostly am coin hunting and coin shooting, but certain days, you know, you got, let's say you got a lot higher water content in the ground and it's rained, or certain days, you know, let's say the 30-30 or any machine for that matter, they're just like explosive on coins. And I was curious if you notice that any gold hunting too, if there's certain conditions favorable for, just seeming to be able to detect it easy. I don't want to say easier, but better than, if it's real dry or real wet, or do changing conditions in the, weather, does that affect the gold hunting at all?
Oh, absolutely. But unfortunately, more to the opposite, that it's a real problem here in Nevada in particular, that when you're in desert country, a lot of the nugget hunting and prospecting is going on in desert country. And so these areas are very rarely wet. They're typically dry. And unfortunately, there's a lot of salt in the ground in some of these desert areas. So probably the worst thing for us, or for me, I should say specifically, is if I'm heading out towards northern Nevada, if it rains out there, it's going to be a battle with my 7000, because the Minelab GPZ 7000 really doesn't like wet alkali ground. It wants to, it literally picks the ground up and it moans and it groans, and it's a bear to run. And so I prefer the ground to be absolutely bone dry when I'm running that metal detector. But then there's other places like in Alaska, I think the ground being wet's a little better up there, which is good because it rains all the time, So there's no salt in the ground to worry about. And, I'm like you, a lot of times when you're out there coin hunting and stuff, the ground being wet does seem to help. I think when you have all that porous air spaces in the ground, it doesn't carry the detector signal quite as well. And so, it just depends, but in desert country, wet alkali ground is not a good thing.
Interesting. I've got a question. Matt, are you done with questions, or you got any more?
Yeah, nope, that was all I had.
We're getting pretty late here in the show, but I wanted to real quick, if we can touch on this. Brian Harvey wants to know your thoughts on the Gold Monster. I think he's wanting more in depth. Tell me more, kind of thing.
Well, that's a funny machine, because when I first got my hands on the Gold Monster, I'll be honest with you, I thought this is the goofiest looking darn metal detector I've ever seen. I mean, it's just totally different looking. It was out of the blue, as far as the design and the look of it. And the true story on that machine was it was specifically made to go after the African gold prospecting market. That's a huge market over there. And so I don't know that Minelab even had any intentions of selling it in the United States initially. It really was kind of designed for the third world market. But I'm one of the guys that during the testing of the machine, I was telling Minelab constantly that, guys, there's people that are going to like this because it's simple, it's effective, it does the job. And I'll tell you what, I fell in love with the little machine. I just love my Gold Monster. It's so simple to operate. I mean, it's the kind of machine, my wife does not metal detect. I could take her out gold nugget hunting and give her that machine and she could find gold nuggets with it. It's that simple to run. And if there's one flaw that machine's got is that it's kind of like the Naka macro machines, for instance. Anybody that runs them very much finds out they can overload pretty easily. If you turn the gain up too high, they just overload. You get them on a shallow target or on certain ground, you'll go into this overload condition. The Gold Monster is the same way. It has a very high gain, and the sensitivity is purposely designed to be run up to an extremely high level. And I've run into all kinds of problems on the forums trying to explain to people that just because you can turn something all the way up doesn't mean you should do it.
Right. Right.
And if you do that, you'll start getting a lot of false signaling. The coils will start getting knock sensitive if you bump them around and stuff. The solution is simple. Turn the sensitivity down. But I've gone round and round and round on some of those discussions where it's like, well, if I turn the sensitivity down, it won't find gold as well. Yeah, but then it won't have false signals on these rocks and things that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I don't want to lose the sensitivity. Yeah, but you need to turn it down if you want the false signals to go away. It's just round and round and round you go. But that machine running at about 50% sensitivity level is the equivalent of a Goldbug Pro running at full sensitivity level, just to give you an idea.
Yeah, okay.
And so it's an extremely high gain, extremely boosted audio. And, man, I can find fly specks of that detector. It's just a fun little machine.
Yeah, that sounds like the T2. A lot of people were running that thing super high, and people still run it too high, and they have to be told you got to turn it down. It's not working good where you're at because you got it cranked up too high. It's it sounds like the same kind of situation going on there. So.
Well, I'm one of the guys that when I get the opportunity, and the Gold Monster was one of them, when they make metal detectors, they get to decide where that sensitivity control maxes out at. And you can make metal detectors safe. Just don't make the control go too high. Keep it in the safe zone. And that's been common on a lot of machines. These detectors that you can buy, you can literally turn the sensitivity control to max and leave it there forever. They work well. Maxed out. Well, that drives me crazy because I feel like there's something left on the table there. It's like, well, if it runs perfectly everywhere at full level, shouldn't that mean there's a little more out there that I can get?
Right.
And so I do push these guys to try and make the machines to where you can basically wreck them if you drive it too fast. Crank that baby up and it's going to misbehave, and then back it down until it starts settles down. That's the way I like to have a metal detector. But I can see now where it gets them into trouble because there's some people that refuse to turn it down, and yet they complain every single day that it's noisy and that it's giving false signals. So what are you going to do?
The cruiser's like that. My first time out, I was struggling with it, and I didn't crank it all the way up, but I found myself having to back it down. But it'll still go plenty deep. I mean, you can run that thing stable and it'll still go plenty deep. But I like that. I like that you have some play there. You're right. When you've got a detector, you can crank all the way up and there's nothing left. You feel like you're missing out on something.
Yeah, it'd be just like buying a car that when you floored it wouldn't go faster than 60.
Right, exactly.
No, I want it to go faster than that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's too funny. Steve, I think we're pretty good. Is there anything else you wanted to talk about? I was kind of wanting to get to some stories and hear some more stories and stuff, but we're an hour and 40 into it now. I figure, we can always have
Well,
you
Mike,
back.
I'll tell you what. Yeah, we don't want to. Besides which, you know what? You're a lot of fun. Your show's great. Love talking to you. So we'll just do another show in the future.
Good deal. I'm already looking forward to it. So, yeah, let's go ahead and wrap it up. Well, let me put the number out there one more time if somebody wants to call in. Yeah, people are already saying bring Steve back again. They really like hearing what you have to say. We'll just while we're talking here at the end, if anybody's got any questions, 682-459-2977. We'll give it a few minutes and see if anybody calls in, and if not, we're gonna wrap it up, Steve. And yeah, great guest, good show, Mike. Bring Steve back again. Yeah, we do enjoy having you on. I got a question for you, kind of off subject. What's next, Steve?
For me or for what?
For you, what's next, and what's going on in your life in metal detecting right now? What are you looking at? What are you?
Well, I've been so busy on a bunch of stuff with detectors that finally spring has arrived here in the western U.S., and so I am looking forward into getting back into my gold prospecting this summer, and I do want to take the Equinox up to Lake Tahoe here real soon and do some beach detecting up at Tahoe with it, because it ought to handle that mineralized soil up there real well. But, I'm mainly going to get my nugget hunting in, and then I love using that Equinox right now because it's a new toy, so I've definitely got to get out and use it as much as I can. I'd like to see how I can do on gold with it this summer. But, there's a lot of stuff on the horizon, too. I'm waiting for that. Fisher's working on a new PI, and that's kind of my next one I've got my eye on. I'd like to take a look at that when it comes out. So there's stuff out there yet.
Yeah, that's good. Good deal. So you're getting ready for, you need a good break from all the detectors and stuff, don't you?
I'm right now, I don't need to do any more testing. I want to just go find stuff.
Right. I get that. Absolutely. All right, Steve, I think we're going to end the show. No calls coming in, but we will definitely get you back on again, and looking forward to it, and great show. I know I talk a lot. I just get excited. I love talking metal detecting, but you handle it well, and I appreciate that. So.
Well, no, Mike, it's a pleasure. You're fun to talk to, and we'll definitely do it again in the future. Promise.
All right, good deal. Okay. Great talking to you, Steve. Looking forward to it, and have a good night, and we'll talk soon.
You too, Mike. Take care. Thank you very much.
You too. Bye. All right, there you have it, guys. Another good show. Thank you for listening.
The All Metal Mode podcast is sponsored by Digger's Den. If you are looking for a metal detector, get in touch with Mike or Brian. Together, they have years of experience with many different brands and models. They truly enjoy what they do. You can contact them through Facebook at Digger's Den, visit the website at dddetectors.com, or give Mike a call. He makes it sound like he's so busy raising our boy, but he has time. His number is 937-414-4578.